ahead of you. Sure. Tom Perko, president of Benmark, thank you.
Thanks.
Turning now to the broader economy, existing home sales surged to their best numbers in September. The National Association of Realtors says sales of previously owned homes rose 2.4% to a seasonally adjusted 5.17 million units. There's a few interesting notes out of this report, and to discuss them is Jay Morelock, an economist with FTN Financial. Jay, welcome to Arise Exchange, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, looking through this report, it's kind of interesting. We had been saying for a long time that investors were driving prices higher in the real estate market. They have started to leave, yet the numbers have held up.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. What we see is existing home sales are very sensitive to interest rates. So as we've seen long-term interest rates come down over the past couple months, we've seen home buyers come in and replace investors and actually buoy out the whole.
But that sounds like a really big concern in that we're keeping interest rates very low. They've got to start edging up soon. And the question is can the broader markets support that in the real estate business? If we're really at historic low mortgage rates, how healthy is this market?
No, you're absolutely right. It's the trade-off because when long-term interest rates are low, it's usually a bad sign for the macro economy, though good for the housing market. What we really need right now to boost that with long-term interest rates coming up is going to be a little bit of a loosening of credit standards to allow the home buyers to.
Do you think we're going to get those credit standards loosened? We've been hearing some talk about it because banks have been complaining that they can't lend money.
Yeah, and the over-regulation is sort of starting to sink in, and I think in Washington the conversation has started to where they are going to feel like, to get more home buyers into this market, we do need to loosen up a little bit.
Are we seeing a little bit of a demographic change in the people going back into the housing market right now?
Well, actually interesting, when you look at the millennial generation, household formation is actually pushed out to about 29 years old. So we've seen an influx of them coming into the cities and actually have been sort of the missing piece and what hasn't really boosted it to the levels that we have previously anticipated.
And interestingly, we're seeing some different growths in different parts of the country as well, as far as where existing home sales are doing well.
No, absolutely. This month especially, we saw a big boost in the South and the West. The Midwest pulled back a little bit. About half of existing home sales are in the southern region. So it's a very good sign. We have a big push. They were up over 5% this month, which will hopefully continue in the coming months.
Why the discrepancy between new home sales and existing home sales?
It's much harder to break ground, so it's a different demographic. So if you're actually breaking ground, building a new home, we had a huge buildup of homes from 2000 to 2007. So with huge inventories, there's not as much room to actually break ground, and it's actually much easier just to buy an existing home.
And permits are harder to get, I imagine, and there's a lot more that goes into it.
Permits are harder to get, and it's an affordability issue. So new homes are more expensive.
Right, you have to design them and you have to build them. And are we seeing, with investors leaving, are we seeing first-time home buyers get back into the market?
A little bit. It's been pretty steady. So that's really what we've been looking for. And again, going back to that millennial generation coming in as this first home buyer, as the economy improves, and it really comes back to the job market. Once the millennials can come in, get a solid job, become creditworthy.
And we start seeing some wage growth. And once we start seeing some wage growth, we're going to start seeing some interest rates hikes, right? So hopefully it all kind of puts the puzzle together.
Ideally, we see wage growth alongside interest rates hike, a little bit of loosening of credit standards, and we can kind of hit this sweet spot to where we do see growth.
There's an interesting story about where college grads are kind of settling down, and we have a graphic that we can show people in Denver, San Diego, Nashville, Salt Lake City, and in Portland. Are you surprised about where they're going?
Sounds like about the 5 coolest cities in the country right now, so no. And again, as housing formation gets pulled back, they really have about a 7-year sweet spot to where they're going to live in cities, get roommates, split rent, and again, they're liberal cities. They're cool. There's a lot of music and mountains, some outdoor space.
And the cost of living and the cost of buying a home certainly is lower. I mean, for what you could get in a one-bedroom Manhattan apartment, you could own a good chunk of Denver, I imagine.
Yeah. Oh no, and these are really the coolest second-tier cities when you kind of get out of the L.A., New York, Chicago, San Francisco region. It really moves to the Denvers.
And people go where the jobs are, of course, as well.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of technology jobs. Finally, what's your outlook going into the final fourth quarter as to where we're going to see the housing market go?
I think it's going to stay about flat for the next 3 months. I think long-term interest rates are going to stabilize.
Take flat, right? That's probably not so
absolutely.
bad.
As long as it's flat, as long as it's not going down.
Okay. Jay Morelock, thank you, an economist with FTN Financial. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Coming up,